David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with what I feel is a very special fountain pen review. Today I have for you the latest release in the Visconti Homo Sapiens Lava series, and that is the Crystal Dream. What I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of the Crystal Dream, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about this brand new model. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. Thanks go out to the good folks at Coles of London, the US distributor for Visconti, for providing this pen on loan for review. It arrives in this standard Visconti box. Inside, there is some standard documentation. There is also a polishing cloth, which is nice. And then here we have the pen. This is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Crystal Dream. Now, Visconti's Homo Sapiens line is comprised of several different models made from a variety of materials. For the sake of this review, if I refer to the Homo Sapiens, then what I'm talking about is the traditional lava resin model. The pen is made from a material which is 50% basaltic lava and 50% resin. Since this is a particularly natural material, there's going to be minor variances between pens depending on the actual lava used. You can see here the material has a fair amount of pitting and some coloration to it. It's not just solid black. I've seen other Homo sapien pens where the material is a bit smoother with less pitting, and I've seen some with lots of pitting and a bit of an ashen undertone. Each variant is interesting. The material is slightly hygroscopic, which means it can absorb things like oils or wetness from your hand, or even ink. So when you're inking up this pen, you want to wipe down the section rather quickly to avoid any stains. There are a couple of different types of lava, but basaltic lava is the kind of bright reddish orange lava that you see spewing out of active volcanoes. The lava for this pen comes from the Mount Etna volcano in Italy. A quick aside, I've had the opportunity to witness an erupting volcano in person during a vacation to Hawaii many years ago. I took a helicopter tour over Kilauea, which is a very active volcano on Hawaii's Big Island. There wasn't much lava flowing on the surface, but there were many large holes in the earth where you could see the river of red-orange lava flowing right underneath the surface. Then we flew out to the edge of the island where the lava was actually spewing out of holes and pouring directly into the ocean. It was interesting to see an island literally growing right before your eyes. It was an incredible display of nature. And even though it was about 30 years ago, I remember it vividly to this day. Okay, back to this lava pen. The trim on this pen is bronze. I showed you the polishing cloth earlier. It's nice that that's included so that if you choose to keep the brass polished and not let it tarnish, then you have a means to do so. Let's take a look at the cap. On the end, there is an insert with the Visconti logo. I believe this is a new logo for Visconti pens. In comparison, here's the logo which was on the Skylight. This pen utilizes Visconti's My Pen system, where the insert at the top is held in place with a strong magnet. You could pick up a number of alternate inserts, ones that have your initials or birthstone and things like that. The main thing I like about this system is if the V isn't quite aligned with the clip, which I think kind of looks best, you can kind of just rotate it with your thumb to whichever orientation best fits your tastes. Then we have the traditional Visconti clip. I find the lettering on this clip to be very crisp and clean. The cap angles up slightly, and then there are dual bronze bands. I've always liked the look of the bands on the Homo Sapiens cap, but they're also functional. They serve as a guide when you operate the clip. The clip doesn't have an upturned edge to it, so you can't just slide it into your pocket. What you need to do is kind of grasp the clip right between the bands and then pinch to extend the clip out slightly, and then you could operate it. It's a bit different than other clips, but once you get used to it, it operates very naturally. And having those bands as a guide really helps as well. There is a medium-sized step down to the barrel, which begins with one of my favorite features of this pen, the transparent band window. I love the transparent band/ink window here. It's one of my favorite additions to the recent Homo sapien models. It's functional, giving you a decent look at your ink situation in the forward chamber, which I'll discuss more about in a minute. And in my opinion, it just looks really sharp. I like the filled black letters and the black bands. It looks really clean, even in this extreme close-up. The barrel is straight, as is the ink window, which we'll get back to here in a minute. And then there is a large piston knob, which tapers down slightly, and there is a rounded brass insert on the very end. I believe this is a new addition to this model as well. It wasn't on the Skylight, and I don't recall seeing that insert on any other Homo sapiens model. I feel having this longer piston knob was a wise decision, as opposed to the size that's used on other Homo sapien models. That size would have required another break in the material and another band, or having the ink window set further back, which I feel would have thrown off the visual balance of this pen. Okay, let's take a look at the distinguishing feature of the Crystal Dream, the transparent window. It's made from a crystal acrylic resin and is oversized compared to a typical ink window. Now, this is the second Homo sapiens model with an ink window in the barrel, the first being the Skylight. The biggest issue for me regarding the Skylight was the build quality. The gaps around the ink window cutouts weren't as clean, as precise as I would have liked them to be. I don't find those same issues to be present here in the Crystal Dream. I find the tolerances to be tight and clean. I think improvements were made in that regard. The cap is affixed using Visconti's hook-safe threads. If you're not familiar with them, in order to operate, you don't simply twist, it's more of a push twist, and the cap comes up in about 1/6 of a turn. And underneath, we have this 18-karat gold nib. I've always cared for Visconti's nib design, as well as the crescent breather hole. This nib is available in extra fine, fine, medium, broad, and a 1.3 millimeter stub. And here's a look at the plastic feed. The section is slightly concave and isn't especially long, and it transitions into the aforementioned hook-safe threads. Now, in regard to these threads, on previous Homo sapien models, I've seen the edges of these threads to be a little ragged from the boring out of the grooves, but on this particular pen, the grooves are a bit cleaner, which is nice to see. As I mentioned, the section itself isn't particularly long, and I do find my grip resting a bit on those threads, but I don't find them to be sharp or uncomfortable. The cap does post, and it does post securely. On this model, as well as other Homo sapiens, I do find it adds considerable length to the pen and makes it a bit unwieldy, so I prefer to use this pen unposted, and it's plenty long enough to do so. I've heard some people voice an opinion that they felt that the ink window was too large on this pen and that it took away from what makes the Homo sapiens unique, mainly the lava resin material. While I can understand those thoughts, the Crystal Dream is an entirely different model than the standard lava Homo sapiens. That original model isn't going away. This is just an alternative to the traditional model. There are some Homo sapiens models that I care for more than others. I wasn't a huge fan of the limited edition Mozzie Bronze Age. That was the one with the lava-spewing volcano graphic on the barrel. And I had mixed feelings on the Skylight as well. I really like the Magma model as well, the one with the red trim. And I do care for this Crystal Dream. I feel it's a good alternative to the standard Homo sapiens model. The original Homo sapiens featured Visconti's single reservoir power filling system. The Crystal Dream has been upgraded to their double reservoir system. There are two separate ink chambers, each with their own window. There is the main rear chamber, and then there's the smaller forward chamber. When the plunger knob is closed, you can actually see, I'll pull it open, and then when it's closed, those chambers are sealed from each other. When you run out of ink in the forward chamber, you just crack the seal between the two chambers, and ink will flow from the rear to the front, and you're back in business. In regard to Homo sapiens with ink windows, I feel the Crystal Dream is superior to the Skylight. I think the lines are a bit cleaner, and aesthetically it's more pleasing to the eye. It doesn't seem more like a chunk of the pen was removed. It's more of a natural flowing design. I was thinking about the options they had for designing this ink window. I had wondered if they should have maybe kept it the same size as the distance between the bands on the cap. And, this is my sterling silver model, which has barrel bands. And then I was thinking more about it, that I think it would have looked more like someone just bisected the pen if it had a smaller ink window in there. So I think that having the larger window here adds to the functionality and of the feature and looks a little bit nicer. Now, my perfect Homo sapiens model would be a combination of a couple of models. I would love to have the second set of rings on the barrel, as like my sterling silver model does, but I also want to have the clear ink window band. I just love that band. The Visconti Homo Sapiens Crystal Dream retails for $1,095, making it the most expensive of the Llama Homo Sapien models. Now, through authorized dealers, you will find it at a discounted rate. I saw this available through one large retailer at 35% off, which brings the price down to $711, bringing it closer to the price point of many of the other Homo sapien offerings. In the end, I like this model. I feel it's a solid addition to the Homo sapiens lineup, and I can see this one staying in production for quite some time. Now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons, a writing sample, and I'm going to go ahead and ink up this pen and show you how the power filling mechanism operates. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Visconti Homo Sapiens Crystal Dream. Here it is with my sterling silver model. Then here it is with another Homo sapiens, one I showed briefly earlier, the Magma. And then finally a different Visconti. This is the Divina Desert Springs. And then in regard to some other flagship models, here it is with a Mont Blanc 149 and a Pelikan M1000. And a Sailor King of Pen, and this particular one is the Royal Tangerine. And in regard to some uncapped comparisons, here it is with the Pelikan M1000 and the Mont Blanc 149, and then the Sailor King of Pen. So let's go ahead and ink this pen up. What I have here is Visconti turquoise. This is one of my favorite turquoises, and I just love the Visconti ink bottles. Now, I know this angle isn't necessarily conducive to getting a good view of this, but we're going to go ahead and stick this in here and fill that up. Let me go ahead and pump it a couple of times. And you can see that we have some ink in the barrel. Now, if you pump that a few times, you could get a little bit more ink in there. I'm making sure to go ahead and clean off the section. And let's go ahead and cap this up so we don't have any incidents. And then you just seal the end cap here. And what we have is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Crystal Dream. This is a medium 18 karat gold nib, and the ink that I'm using that I showed you previously is Visconti turquoise. It's a ink that I really care for. This is what the ink looks like. That I find it to be very similar to something like the Lamy Pacific Blue. And this is what Pelikan turquoise looks like. And then just as a comparison, that's KWZ turquoise. And so you can see that there's a big difference between some of the other turquoise out on the market and what KWZ is considering to be their turquoise, which I think is more of a blue-green than a true turquoise. In regard to the rest of the writing sample, I find this 18 karat gold nib to be very smooth, and the ink flow is very generous on it. It's very pleasant to use. You can get a little bit of line variation out of here. And like I said, the ink flow through here is rather generous. In regard to reverse writing, it's a little sharp, but not too bad. And then in regard to some fast writing, there's no problem with the feed keeping up at all. So there we have the Visconti Homo Sapiens Crystal Dream. As I mentioned, I think this is an excellent addition to the Visconti Homo Sapiens lineup. I think it brings something new to the table. I think it functions very well and looks very nice and does everything that it promises. So I've been very pleased with this particular model. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.